You just got your paycheck and 80% of it is gone. It's an IRS wage levy due to back taxes. But your rent is due. Your car payment is due. You're panicking. Here's the good news. You can get that levy released sometimes in as little as 24 to 72 hours. And I'm going to show you exactly how right after the intro.
1-877 Levy King, levyking.com.
What's up, guys? Corey Hankerson here. Most people know me as the Levy King. If the IRS took your check, the Levy King will get it back. 1-877 Levy King, levyking.com. Today, we're talking about IRS wage levies, how they work, why they happen, and the exact steps you need to take to get that levy released fast. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about the IRS levy process and how it actually works, because understanding this is critical. The IRS doesn't just wake up one day and take your paycheck. There's a whole process. There's steps that they have to follow. So here they are. Step one, you owe back taxes. You filed your return, or the IRS filed one for you, and now you owe money. Step two, they're going to send you a bill. They'll send a notice CP 14. This is your first actual bill putting you on notice that you owe back taxes. If you don't pay, they're going to start sending collection notices, CP 501, a CP 503, CP 504. All of these are increasingly urgent payment demands. Now, step three is they're going to send you something called a final notice of intent to levy. That comes after months of ignoring the previous notices that they already sent you. So the IRS is going to send you a letter 1058 or a letter LT 11. Both of these are the final notice of intent to levy and notice of your right to a hearing. This is your last warning, the end of the line. You got 30 days to respond, or you move to step four. That's when the levy hits. If you don't respond within 30 days, the IRS is going to issue a levy. They're going to contact your employer directly and order them to send a portion of your wages straight to the government instead of giving it to you. Now, here's what most people don't understand. Your employer has no choice. Once they receive that levy notice, they are legally required to comply. If they don't, the IRS can hold them personally liable for your tax debt. And here's how much they take. The IRS uses something called a publication 1494 to calculate exactly how much of your paycheck you get to keep. Not how much they're going to take, but how much you actually get to keep. That number is going to be based on your filing status and the number of dependents that you have. For most people, the IRS is probably going to take somewhere around 70 to 80% of your paycheck. I had a client who was making $4,000 a month. After the levy, he took home $850. He couldn't pay his mortgage. He couldn't pay his car payment. He was facing eviction. The same thing happens with bank levies. The IRS is going to contact your bank, and the bank freezes your account for 21 days. After 21 days, they're going to send the money in your account to the IRS. Everything in that account, all of it, up to the amount that you owe, is going to be gone, just like that. So, why do levies happen? Well, it's simple. The IRS tried everything else and you didn't respond. Most people think that the IRS just like randomly attacks, and that's not really true. Before the levy hits, they're going to send you multiple notices over 6 to 12 months. If you ignore all of those, the IRS assumes that you're not going to pay voluntarily. So they move to what's called enforced collection. I've had clients say, "Hey, Corey, I never got those notices." Maybe you moved and didn't update your address. Maybe the notices went to an old PO box. Doesn't really matter. The IRS sent them to the last address they had on file. Unfortunately, that is legally sufficient to count as proper notice. Now, here's the other reason levies happen. You set up a payment plan and you defaulted. Maybe you missed a payment or two. Maybe you didn't file your current year's tax return. The IRS doesn't give you a second chance in that case. In most instances, they're going to terminate your installment agreement and move straight to a levy. Okay, so the levy hit, your paycheck is mostly gone, or your bank account is entirely frozen. Here's how to get it released. Option one, you can pay the debt in full. If you can pay the full amount you owe, the IRS will release the levy immediately. But let's be real. If you could pay in full, you probably would have done it already. So option two is to set up a payment plan. The fastest way to get a levy released, if you want that levy released right away, you're going to need to set up an installment agreement. Once the IRS has a guaranteed payment stream, they'll release the levy. Here's what you do. If you owe less than 50,000, you're going to go for a streamlined installment agreement. If you owe more than 50,000, you're going to need to submit the paperwork for an installment agreement, a Form 9465, and you're going to have to provide full financial disclosure, bank statements, pay stubs, rent, car note, all those things. You're going to have to document those and provide them to the government. The IRS is typically going to release that levy within 24 to 72 hours of approving your payment plan. I had a client who owed about $32,000. The IRS levied his wages and took 2,560 from his $3,200 paycheck. He called me in a panic. We applied for an installment agreement and it was released pretty much the same day. I think maybe it was a day or so, but it was released right away. And the monthly payment for that was about $550 a month. Yes, that's a lot, but it's better than 2560 that they were taking via the levy. He received the full amount of his paycheck in the very next pay cycle. Now, side note, don't set up an installment agreement and then turn around and default on the payment. I see this all the time. You call the IRS to either prevent or maybe release a levy, and they know that you're desperate to get that levy released, and so they force you into a payment that you know for sure that you can't afford. Maybe you struggle to make a payment or two before you eventually default. Then you're right back to being levied. When you call for the second time to set up another installment agreement, you might not be able to get it due to your history of defaults, which brings us to the next option. Option three is the offer in compromise. If you can't afford a payment plan, you might qualify for an offer in compromise, which is settling your debt for less than you actually owe. I've done offers where the IRS has reduced the tax debt by 70, 80, or even 90% of the original balance. But here's the catch. The OIC process can take 6 to 12 months, and the IRS is not going to release that levy just because you filed an offer. You'll need to request a levy release separately based on economic hardship. Now, once the offer is accepted and you pay, then the levy is released at that time. Now, option four is going to be something called currently not collectible status. If you genuinely can't afford to make any monthly payments, and of course you can't pay the balance in full, and you can't wait on an offer in compromise, you can request currently not collectible status. You'll need to prove that the levy is causing economic hardship, and you're going to have to document everything. If they approve it, the IRS is going to release the levy and stop collections. Interest and penalties will continue to accrue, and the IRS is most likely going to file a tax lien against you, but that will release the levy. We had a client whose bank account was levied the day before her rent was due. The IRS took $2,800, which was all the money she had in the world. She was basically going to be evicted. We requested an immediate hardship release. They released the levy within 24 hours and returned the money that they took out of her account. So let's talk about another actual client. Let's call him James. James owed $68,000 in back taxes. He ignored the IRS notices because he just basically didn't know what to do. Then one day his paycheck was $600 instead of his normal $3,000. The IRS had levied his wages. James called me in a panic. He's all like, Corey, I can't survive on $600 a month. I've got a mortgage, I've got a car payment, I've got two kids. What do I do? So here's what we did. We immediately applied for an installment agreement. On a $68,000 debt, he's paying $870 a month for 60 months. Within 2 days, the IRS approved the agreement and released the levy. But here's the key. I knew that the chances of James keeping up with that $870 monthly payment were slim to none. So I recommended an offer in compromise. The IRS settled his $68,000 debt for $13,800 and gave him 24 months to pay. Look, if the IRS just levied your paycheck or your bank account, you're probably in crisis mode right now. You need to get that levy released fast. I've helped thousands of people get wage levies and bank levies released, sometimes in as little as 24 hours. This is literally what we do every single day. Here's what I want you to do right now. Go to www.levyking.com. That's levyking.com. Or click the link below in this video. Answer a few quick questions about your levy, and about your situation, and my team will tell you exactly how to get it released. Or give us a call right now at 1-877 Levy King. That's 1-877-538-9546. Don't wait another day. Every paycheck the IRS takes is money that you might not get back. Let me help you stop the bleeding and get your financial life back on track. I'm Corey Hankerson. They call me the Levy King for a reason. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.
1-877 Levy King. Levy Levy King. 1-877 Levy King. leviking.com.
Owe back taxes to the IRS? Call the Levy King. He's the best. 877 Levy King. leviking.com.
1-877 Levy King. leviking.com.